Get ready. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Father Jeff Loseke. I'm the pastor here at St. Charles Borromeo Parish in Gretna, Nebraska, just outside of Omaha.
And I'm Jackie Schuler. I'm the Director of Faith Formation here at St. Charles.
And we wanted to put this video together to share with you a new approach to family faith formation that we've been working on, that we've been building, I guess, over the last 2 years. The process of how we discovered it and how we put it together and our experience thus far. The whole process really begins with the archdiocesan vision that our Archbishop here in Omaha announced a few years ago. The Archbishop's vision of one church, encountering Jesus, equipping disciples, living mercy. These 4 pillars really express the direction that the church is going and how we are to bring people to Jesus and live that faith in the context of church. When the Archbishop introduced this to the priests, he really encouraged us to think about how we are supposed to be building our parishes to capture the faith and to inspire something new. When we started thinking about how to do that here, how do we live this vision? How do we bring people to Jesus more fruitfully? We really recognized that there were 2 areas that we really needed to focus on. And Jackie and I started talking about that, particularly with our religious education program and our sacramental prep program. We realized that we had to do something with these areas that engaged most of our kids and a good portion of our families. Jackie, what did our programs look like before we made any changes?
So I think like most of the programs in Omaha here, we had a weekly program where it was 60 minutes long. The parents would come, they would drop their kids off, then they would run and do errands or whatever they had to do. They would come back in, they would pick their kids up. The kids would come to us after a full day at school, after sitting in a desk. The way that our classrooms, and they were set up like classrooms, they had a catechist volunteer teacher. There was a group of 10 to 12, sometimes 15 kids with that one teacher in a class-specific classroom. They would just, like I said, it was pretty much a school format.
Sure.
So
this is probably a traditional model that most places, yes. the CCD model, yep, as it were, exactly. Like school after school, essentially.
Exactly. And we noticed we had some frustrations along with what we were experiencing. Absolutely. With that. We had little or no parent involvement. We had discipline issues almost every single week. There'd be kids coming in to talk to me because they were tired after sitting in school all day. It was hard to find catechists every single year. Right at the beginning of this school year, I would be, trying to grab anybody and everybody that we could find that was willing just to be that person in the classroom. It was kind of obvious in our classes that families weren't going to Mass. Kids just were disconnected as far as when we'd get talking about the Mass situation, they weren't familiar with it. We had parents didn't know what was happening in the classroom because they were just dropping those kids off and just taking off. And the kids were kind of being placed on that sacrament conveyor belt, whether they were ready or not. They were receiving the sacrament in the 2nd grade and then the 8th grade.
Right.
So those
so
were
everything
kind of our
was
frustrations.
Just happening because that's the way someone decided long ago that it was going to be. And yeah, it was very different. Uh-huh. Well, as we began looking at that, I think, at least my experience as a priest in the last 20 years has been faith formation, religious education, CCD, parish religious ed, whatever you call it. That is one of the most frustrating areas, I think, in parish life because you want to do so much. You want to help people come to Jesus, and yet you realize that you're not really making the impact that you want to make.
And you have such a short amount of time. You have that 60 minutes a week.
And when the parents themselves aren't involved with that, it's so difficult. Right. And that was one of the things that I think we recognized as an archdiocese and as a greater church, that as we began to think about moving from just maintaining programs and structures that had always been there to really begin focusing on mission. What is the mission of the church? What is the mission of Jesus Christ? And how do we engage people like Jesus Christ did? one of the stories from Scripture that comes to mind when I was thinking about this is the woman who comes to Jesus begging for him to heal her child. She's not a woman of the Jewish faith. And so I'm sure in Jesus' mind, he's wondering if she's just coming to him looking for magic, looking for another god to solve her problems. And then she's just going to go away and disappear because he did what she needed her to do. And so when she asks, Lord, will you heal my daughter? He says to her, no. He challenges her. He brings the mom to faith. He brings her to faith. He has a conversation with her. And as soon as she comes to faith, then he says, now I will heal your child. Had he healed her child before, then that child would not have been brought to faith herself because the mom didn't have faith. Jesus engaged the parent, and then the parent would be able to bring the child to faith. And isn't that what Jesus did? Jesus taught the adults and blessed the children. And it seems that the church today does things just the opposite.
Right.
We teach the children and bless the adults and expect faith to grow. And it doesn't really do that.
Right.
One of the things that, as I was thinking about that, the word that jumps to my mind in all of this is codependency. That we've really kind of, as church in many parish structures, entered into a codependent relationship with our parents. And I like to think about it as a fish and a fish tank. That the parents bring their little fish to us and say, I have this fish, I need an environment for it in order to live. And we hand them this program. Here's our CCD program. Here's our religious ed program. Or here's our Catholic school program, whatever it is. So we have the aquarium and we hand it to them. And they put the fish in the aquarium and we give them back the aquarium. And both of us feel that we've done something. The parents say, I brought my kid to the parish's education classes. And the parish says, we taught those kids everything that we had to teach them. But what neither one of us did was put water into the aquarium. And that fish ends up dying. That we both felt like we did something, but neither one of us really did anything. Because without faith coming from the home, anything we do is going to be fruitless, I think. And that's really what got us thinking about, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I know you started looking at different programs. So what did you find, Jackie?
Well, first we looked at a family formation program that's been around for quite a few years. We actually they brought some people, just representatives here to Omaha. And so a bunch of us ended up attending that seminar that they had. It had some good components.
Absolutely.
It had, it involved the parents. It put them into that first catechist position that they need to be in. But there were some things that we just didn't quite set well with us. It separated the parents from the kids when that's so important to build that bond. It didn't have it. There wasn't a lot of community there, and that was something that we really wanted to focus on. So there weren't any events. It was a bring the parents in, teach them, and say, okay, good luck, have fun with that.
Right, and I think that's what a lot of faith formation programs, how they're built. That it's we're going to put the kids in their grade levels in this room, and then we're going to have the parents in this room, and we're going to teach them.
Right.
And you have them there for like one time.
Just once a month.
And then you send them home, and the parents are supposed to teach the kids
the rest of the month.
And we know from our experience that a lot of our parents haven't been well catechized themselves. They don't know how to do this.
And you can't expect them to teach something they don't have.
So as we were talking about this, we realized that model wasn't exactly the model that was going to work for us.
And then about the same time, we kind of ran across the Sofia Institute's Family of Faith. That also had that separate the parents from the kids component. It did have better materials. We really liked the, shiny bling of that. It had some community events, so that was a good thing. But we just didn't feel like it had that small group faith sharing type thing that they were bringing them together often enough. And again, it's putting it into the hands of the parents. And if the parents aren't equipped for that, how are they going to share that with their kids? So the Sofia Institute, they based theirs. It was a little bit different. I think Family Formation. The first one we looked at was like a 3-year program, and they went on the readings of the cyclical years.
Sure.
But the Sofia Institute went on the Pillars of Faith. So every 4 years they would be going through every year they would be going through a different program, but then on the 5th year it would repeat.
Following the Catechism of the Catholic Church.
Right.
Creed, sacraments, prayer, morality. Yeah.
Yep. So what we wanted to create, when we just kind of looked at this as a whole, we wanted to create that sense of community. We wanted to keep our parents with the kids. And we wanted to meet the parents where they're at, not where we expected them to be or where we thought they should be. Right. So we wanted to not expect them to give what they don't have. Exactly. So we came up with a different model after kind of sitting down and talking and going through, okay, since we can't find this out here, we have to kind of...
Well, and I think we realized that one of the things that what we needed to do was teach the parents...
Right.
And have the kids along for the ride,
yep.
rather than teach the kids and have the parents kind of sort of on the ride.
Exactly. So we came up with a little bit different program where we created small family groups. We are still using the first couple of years. We decided to use the Sofia Institute's materials, but we have set it up a little different. We have small faith sharing groups with like 4 to 6 families with the kids and their parents. They come together once a month, and it's for 90 minutes instead of 60.
And it's intergenerational, so it's not grade level. It's a whole family together, whether your kid's a 2nd grader and a 5th grader, or if you have 2 3rd graders, or whatever you have, we put them all together in the same group.
Exactly. And our program's designed for kids in 1st through 6th grade.
Correct.
Now, if parents have younger siblings that aren't quite ready to join them yet, we do offer childcare because we want to remove as many obstacles as we can for those families. But the kids, so all the children come together with their parent, at least one parent. A lot of times both parents come.
Sure.
So, and then there's a mentor that's sort of in charge of the group. They're not necessarily a teacher. The first year, that's what we did. We had a facilitator, and they were sort of the catechist of the group. But just tweaking things and how it ended up working out, we decided what we would do is have the families lead different parts of those lessons. And it has been amazing just listening to the testimonies of those parents and how excited the kids are when they get to teach or when it's their part. And it's just just to have, there's no better way to learn than to teach something.
So in these groups, one of the families themselves, they take turns teaching.
Sure. It depends on the group. Each group has a little different dynamic. Some groups decided, okay, I'm going to teach October, you teach November. Some groups said, I'm better at crafts, you're better at scripture, so I'll teach the craft part of this, you do the scripture part. So each group kind of depends, just based on the talents of those groups and the dynamics and how that works. But we have, so basically a typical night starts out, we all say our opening prayer, they say their opening prayer as a group, and then they have just a faith sharing. How did you encounter God in this last week? And it's been amazing just listening to the mentors and how that they describe this. There was one mentor that shared with me, there was a little boy that was sitting there and his dad was sharing his God moment, and the little boy is looking at him like, oh my gosh, really? God talks to you and you experience God? And so just hearing that, where they might not have that, or may not be comfortable at home talking about their faith because they've never done it before.
They've never done it. So we're teaching the parents how to have a faith conversation.
Yes. Yep. And then the kids, it just naturally comes for Vacation Bible School every year. We talk about having our God moments, and kids are super excited to share those. And of course they start out, oh, I saw a flower, or I saw a butterfly, or something like that. Exactly. But then they listen to their parents and they hear a more deeper sense of how God is affecting them, and they're like, yeah. Okay, I did see God in that way.
But we don't it's not all the subjective stuff. There is some concrete elements that's incorporated into each lesson as well.
Oh, absolutely. After
so what do those look like?
Okay, they get done sharing, and then they work through the lesson. There's, we got together with a group of teachers over the summer and kind of came up with some fun activities to go through, the objectives for each lesson. There's some hands-on things. There's some games that they do. There's some videos that we have, that kind of thing. And they are age appropriate. So we end up working back and forth with the little kids and the older kids so that they can kind of, it's more like, I explain it to the mentors like a conversation around the dinner table.
Sure.
You know how you come up with a topic and everybody has something to share, but it's not necessarily, grade specific. Everybody can have their contributions. So that's what it looks like. We have, there's a scripture memorization for the month. There's a saint of the month. And then we bring all of our groups together at the end of the month, at the end of the night, to have a closing prayer together. The topic of that closing prayer is either the things that they just covered for the nightly lesson, or it might be based on the calendar, Right to Life, things like that. And we give them some little object that they then carry into their home, and they've created prayer centers in their own homes that they're supposed to gather at every night, or every time there's something happening significant in their family. Maybe there's a birth or a death or things like that. They just want to gather, or maybe a child has a test.
Like little home prayer spaces that they're building.
Exactly.
And these are some examples here that you're seeing.
Exactly. And so we give them a little object that goes on that prayer station at home. So this happens once a month.
Okay.
And then we have a separate night that happens one other time that small family group decides to get together. Now they get together and do a topic that relates to whatever the lesson was.
Okay.
Say the lesson was on creation. So then that small family group would get together outside of that time to go on a nature walk and talk about the things that God created. There are some service opportunities that they participate in as a small group, so there's a lot of different, they were each responsible for finding something to go do on their own. Some people, went to a nursing home, or some people provided food at the Rainbow House, things like that. So those are the things they do on their nights off.
And I remember having that conversation where when we were looking at the program, because this is not the way the program was built.
Right.
The program was built once again to have all of the children in their age groups, and then to have all of the parents in a separate classroom. The parents were taught, and then they were to go home and teach the lesson.
The rest of the material.
And we just realized that, gosh, our parents aren't going to feel equipped to do that. So let's put the parents all together with their kids in these groups.
Exactly.
But we still wanted them to have a second opportunity. Like just meeting once a month just didn't feel right for us. That was too far and in between.
Yeah.
But we also didn't have the facilities to be able to have them up here, to have everybody up here every week.
Well, and when you get in a bigger group, you don't form those tight bonds. And so that was kind of our goal, was let's do something fun, but you still had time to kind of create those bonds, where that other time was lesson, we're very driven on topic, what you're supposed to be doing. So those other small groups.
So the way we set up that second meeting, so they meet the first time in the parish on a specific night at a specific time.
Yep.
Their second group, they meet on their own in their homes or at a place that they decide they want to get together as their small group to complete whatever their group activity is.
Lots of them did donuts or gone
so it's really they build some good bonds. Good to see.
And after now we've completed our second year, we have noticed some huge changes. We have noticed families bonding together. After that first year, I had so many people come up and say, can we have our same group next year? Because we really got along with them, and this was really great, and we just have developed these friendships. That they'd come to Mass and see these people where they wouldn't have known them before.
And we saw them at Mass.
Yes, that was
a big thing that we saw we saw them at Mass.
Yep. Another thing I noticed that, I don't know if it's just our parish, I have a feeling it probably isn't, but when we had those grade levels with the catechist, I would say, probably 85 to 90% of the moms or the women would show up, which was great. We love having them. Some of them would be grandmas, that kind of thing. But since we changed to this program, probably 40% of the dads show up.
That's amazing.
And it's so powerful just because we know that having that man involved he's the leader of the family, and to see that it's been amazing.
To see the father figure
Yes.
involved in teaching and sharing
Right.
and expressing the faith. It's amazing when I walk around the halls and I see
Yeah.
not only moms here, but also dads
Yeah.
here. And some of the dads are taking the active role in
mentors,
being
yeah.
the mentors in the teaching. That's great.
It's been amazing to see. We've noticed that the kids are seeing their parents practice the faith, that they're understanding, wow, I didn't know my mom and dad, because, I think it was sort of that misconception that, oh, I'm confirmed, I'm done now, I
Right.
don't have to go back, I don't have
Right.
to learn anything else, I know everything I need to know, and the kids thought, okay, once I'm in 8th grade, I'm done too. So it's just, I've had a huge number of parents come up to me and say, I have learned so much. I've been Catholic my whole life, or I went to Catholic school and I didn't know this. How did I get this far?
Yeah,
I
they're
didn't
learning. The
understand."
parents are actually
Yeah.
learning along the way. And
Right.
I've had many say that. It's like, oh my gosh, I never knew that was a thing. I never knew that I've been Catholic my whole life, and how did I miss that? So it's a good opportunity for parents to
Yep.
to learn along the way.
Exactly. So, so in our church, we still do teach the parents. We still do take advantage of
And as they were being more involved, they wanted to volunteer.
Right.
So I know you
Yeah.
don't have as much of a problem
right.
anymore trying to find catechists.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my
Right,
gosh,
right.
I remember trying to line up catechists. Like I saw that notification in the bulletin for weeks on end.
I know. It has been. Those were the things. The mentors are easy. They're easy to find. They were coming to me saying they wanted to help with this.
That's awesome.
Which has just been crazy. I have had 0 discipline issues since this started. Not one child has had to come to me. Because they're sitting with their parents, and their parents know, and it's just easier to have that one-on-one versus the teacher with the 12 kids in the classroom. So that's been a huge thing for us. Like I said, yeah, the mentors are they're coming to me with what they want. Families were attending Mass. Those were things that we just neat things to see. Yeah. Oh, and then the sacraments. That was the other thing. Where we automatically had them in the 2nd grade, you're going to receive reconciliation, then you're going to receive Eucharist, and in the 8th grade, you're going to be confirmed.
This is the thing that always troubled me, is that particularly the last couple years before we made the change, I would be distributing First Holy Communion to these little kids, and it's like, gosh, I don't recognize you. And then you look up to mom and dad, and it's like, I don't recognize you either. Mm-hmm. Or confirmation, you're presenting these young people to the Archbishop for confirmation, and I'm standing up there saying, Archbishop, I can tell you these young people are ready for confirmation, and in my head I'm saying, no, they're not. I don't know these people. I don't see them in church. They just weren't ready. They were on that conveyor belt.
Been this way. I was catechist, I don't want to date myself, probably 20, 25 years ago at a different parish. I was teaching the 4th grade, and we were going to have a class Mass, and I had told the kids, okay, next week we're going to have a Mass as a class, and that 4th grade little boy jumped up and said, yay, I get to make my 2nd communion.
2nd communion in 4th grade.
And my heart just dropped because, well, not only had he not been to Mass, but the fact that he was so excited to go and had been denied it just tore at my heart. So
Breaks
to
your heart.
see now our families attending Mass and seeing them regularly, it's been a
and that was something that we asked our parents to really take seriously, that when you engage in formation here, that religious formation, faith formation, was really not about the lessons that you were going to learn. It was about living and practicing the faith. Yeah. And once you started practicing your faith, that's how you learned it. And that's one of the things that I told the parents. I said, think about how you learned how to drive a car. You didn't learn how to drive a car by picking up the owner's manual and reading the book. You didn't even learn how to drive by going to driver's ed. You learned how to drive a car by sitting in the passenger seat for at least 15 years as your parents drove the car. Right. And then you got to feel what it was like to be in a moving vehicle and how you react and what you look for and what that's like. Right. So that when you were of age, you maybe got your driver's permit, and then a mentor was with you, and they helped show you the way. and then you got to drive.
Yep.
But even then, you still don't really learn how to drive until you encounter rain for the first time, and snow,
Right.
and ice, and fog, and a deer, and all of these
those
things.
tough things that come
You
up.
have to experience them.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually living and practicing your faith. And I think that helps.
Yeah.
And when parents realize they're not alone in that,
Yeah.
makes all the difference.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that is true. Just hearing them learn from each other. Oh, you bless your kids before bed? I could do that.
I can
That's
do that.
easy
That's
enough.
cool.
You know,
Yeah.
things like that they're just learning from each other.
And then, of course, if they're going to be teachers, if they're going to try to communicate the faith, we also wanted to nourish our parents.
Right.
So one of the things that we decided to do here in addition and alongside the program was add the Theology Nights. And a Theology Night happened on the previous or, the week before after our Saturday Vigil Mass. And essentially it was a potluck dinner. So we invited people to a potluck dinner, and once everyone had their food and was sitting at the tables, then I would get up and I would present at an adult level what the kids would be learning in their family formation that month. So if the topic was the sacraments of initiation, that was the topic. I talked to the parents, gave it to them. We recorded those so that they could go out on YouTube. So if people weren't able to come and be there in person,
Right.
they could watch it or listen to it or whatever and kind of be prepared
Right.
for what was coming. Because
And
we
that was
wanted
open
people.
to other parishioners.
Absolutely.
As well,
It was
to
a
kind of
great
keep
way
the
to
parish-
get not only our families in family faith formation on the
Yep.
same page, but to bring the whole parish on the same page. So we're all learning the
Exactly.
same things. And that was kind of a benefit and a plus.
Right. Yep.
But of course, when you make a change, the boat starts rocking, and people don't feel comfortable with that. Now,
Right.
we began looking at this, and as we started to think about making this change, we definitely began letting parents know the year prior that, hey, we're thinking about doing something new, different next year, and here's, kind of walking through, just as we've been walking
Right.
through with you today, the process and the reasons why and everything. And nevertheless,
Well, and we had a test night.
We did do a test night,
So the
that's
night
right.
before we started, just at one of the regular religious formation program nights, we asked the parents to come in, and we said, "Hey, we're just going to explain what's going on. We're going to just run through a test run of this."
let's
So they
pilot what we
spent
might be doing next year.
half an hour in the classroom with that catechist being their
Right.
facilitator, kind of showing them what it looked like.
Right.
And then they had a chance to experience that, and then they came back together at the end of the night and had some questions and experience, just some, wait a second, how this is going to look for me, and,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
kind of thing. But
Yeah.
after we did that, then
Well, and then, I was reminded of that scripture passage in St. John's Gospel when Jesus teaches the hard teaching about the Eucharist.
Right.
And he has the people in the crowd saying, this is too difficult. I don't think we can do this. I don't think we can understand this. And Jesus asks them, will you also leave to his disciples? Are you going to leave me as well? Or are you going to stick? Can you handle this and stick through it? And that's really kind of what happened. So even in our program, we, I think, experienced a 20 to 30% drop in family enrollment.
It's so hard to tell.
It is
It's
hard to tell.
somewhere around there, because the reason it is hard to tell is because the way we did it, we only work with now 1st through 6th grade, and
Correct.
7th to 8th got moved to youth groups. So trying to figure how many kids completely, are gone is a little shaky. But at 20 to 30%,
I would say about
is
20 to
probably
30% of our enrollment. We had a 20 to 30% enrollment drop,
Right.
thereabouts.
Right.
And that's troubling on the one hand, because again, you want to give the faith, you want to share
Right.
the faith,
Yeah.
but that seed ground has to be right. They also need to receive
Right.
the faith. And so I remember we just kind of did an informal search here. I wanted to triangulate the data. So it's like, okay, Jackie, you give me the list of names of people who have pulled out of the program. And then let me go to the office and say, I want to see the list of people who are involved in various activities and volunteering, and the list of people who practice stewardship and whatnot, and begin comparing and seeing these names, and I realized it's like, oh yeah, I remember baptizing their kid, but I don't see that family in Sunday Mass. I remember preparing that couple for marriage, but I haven't seen them in church since. Oh, these people never show up to a single event, never volunteer, never practice stewardship. So what we really found out was that we didn't lose anybody. These were the people that were already not engaged, but we were in a codependent relationship. They were continuing to feel like they were living discipleship, and we felt like we were making disciples, but they weren't disciples, and we weren't helping them to become disciples. And we were just prolonging this thing that caused everyone frustration. They hated having to disrupt their schedules to come here, and we hated having to fight against parents. That's not right. And so when we actually looked then at our families that were showing up, it was rather amazing, because not only did people become more active in the parish, more plugged in, more recognizable. I would walk through the halls on a religious formation night, and I didn't have kids ask me who I was. I didn't have parents ask me where the previous pastor was, because they hadn't been here since I showed up. It was a completely different world. All of a sudden we knew each other, and we were engaged with each other, and we even gained some new families. It was beautiful to see those parents who decided that they were going to homeschool their kids in faith formation, or just in school in general. They wanted to be a part of the program. We had people from other parishes who said, I want to be involved in my kids' faith life, because isn't that what we're supposed to do as parents? So we had all sorts of people coming here on top of that and sharing the good news about it.
Well, and even this year, we have a family that's moving to Florida, and they specifically actively went out in Florida, called the Archdiocese and said, hey, where are the parishes that have family formation? Because that's what we want to be part of. And then we've had since those parishes have contacted us to see about how to get that started there.
That's pretty amazing.
It's just a huge testimony to that this is working.
It does work, and it really, we knew that if you invest in the people who are invested, there would be great growth, and then that would overflow and perhaps bring back those who are looking for something, because they would see that we have that thing. And of course, I know everyone is probably wondering, it's like, okay, so that's how you do family faith formation, Jackie.
But how does First Communion work in that?
What the heck do you do with those sacraments? Exactly. So part of the thing that we realized is, okay, the sacraments are not automatic. You don't automatically receive First Communion at a particular grade. You don't automatically receive confirmation at a particular grade. But so how do we figure that out? So we began looking into, well, what does the church have to say about these things? And so we looked up all of these things. And according to the church's canon law, at what age is a Catholic child bound to receive the sacrament of penance?
Well, I'm guessing second grade.
And most people would say second grade. But in fact, it is the age of discretion. It's not necessarily second grade that they are to receive first reconciliation, the sacrament of penance, when they begin to know right from wrong, which means they could be in first grade. They could be in second. So we need to rethink that. Second, what about First Communion? According to the Church's law, when are Catholic children to be prepared for First Communion? What would most people say, Jackie?
Well, we always do it in the second grade.
We always do it in the second grade. And the answer is, not second grade. It is about, once again, the age of discretion, which the Church defines as age 7. So, again, we have to rethink this. It's like, is it automatically second grade, or is there some flexibility? Could there be kids who are prepared to receive First Communion a little earlier? Could there be kids who may need a little more maturity there, where it's going to be a little later? Okay, how about this one? Confirmation. According to the Church's canon law, when are Catholic children to receive the sacrament of confirmation?
Now this one's a tough one.
This is a tough one.
Because I was confirmed as a senior in high school.
And I was confirmed when I was an 8th grader.
Okay, well, see, everybody here, I know in Omaha, it's 8th grade. That's
a lot of people think 8th grade.
Yeah.
And no, did you know that the church's law says that children should be prepared for confirmation at about the age of discretion?
So
that's 7
again, right?
again. So there's some great flexibility. Now, in the Archdiocese of Omaha, when you start preparing for these sacraments, there's the church's universal law, but then there's also particular law. So this will differ depending on where you're from.
Okay.
But in the Archdiocese of Omaha, what is the required length of preparation for First Eucharist?
Well, we got to make sure the kids are in the year before First Communion. So probably 2 years.
Yeah, if they're receiving it in 2nd grade, they're going to start their prep in
right.
1st grade, so they have a 2-year period.
Right.
To be honest, the Archdiocese of Omaha has no particular law. No length is defined so long as it is after the reception of First Reconciliation.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
So if you receive First Reconciliation, you are ready then to receive First Eucharist. But what about confirmation? This one I know is, I've heard a lot of discussion on this one. What is the required length of preparation for the sacrament of confirmation in our archdiocese?
It's 2 years, 7th and 8th grade.
Most DREs think that it is 2 years. Most pastors probably think that it's 2 years. The church's particular law here, no length is defined. There is no length defined. Which, again, gives us a little flexibility in thinking how we're going to do this.
Yeah.
So think about now, going back to that First Communion. In our particular archdiocese, what elements are required for preparation for First Eucharist?
Well, in the past, let's see, they had to be taught about the Eucharist.
Yep.
They had to have received reconciliation already, and we have to have a retreat.
That's what I hear. The particular law of the Archdiocese is that you need to teach them about the Eucharist, and they need to celebrate penance before that.
So no retreat.
It's a good idea, but it's not required.
Necessary.
See, these are the things that, the church offers a lot of recommendations and a lot of good ideas. And then what good-intentioned people do is we turn those ideas into hoops. And then we want people to jump through the hoops, even if things don't always work out.
Right.
Again, what is the preferred moment for a child's reception of First Eucharist in the Archdiocese of Omaha?
Same as reconciliation,
second grade. Yeah. Actually, there's no preference established. So the church's canon law at the age of discretion would hold, which would say age 7 as opposed to age 8 or whatever is after that.
Okay.
Here's an interesting one. Confirmation is always the big question mark.
Yeah.
In the Archdiocese of Omaha, what elements are required as part of a child's preparation for confirmation?
Well, I think what most people think are that we have to have that 2-year program.
Correct.
We have to have a retreat. We got to do some service hours.
Got to do service hours.
That's probably, I'm thinking that's probably the gist of it.
Yeah. So in actuality, the law of the Archdiocese is that those to be confirmed need to have catechesis on confirmation. Okay. They need to learn the rite of confirmation, like what's going to actually happen. Okay. And the parents have to be catechized. There is no talk of a retreat, there is no talk of a 2-year program, and there is no talk of a minimum requirement of service hours. Again, these are all good ideas, but not requirements. Right. So when we talk about when to receive confirmation, the universal law of the church says that the age of discretion.
Right.
But in the Archdiocese of Omaha, what is the preferred moment for confirmation?
Everybody does it.
Everybody does it, yeah, most people do. But it's really between the ages of 13 and 18. So in the Archdiocese of Omaha, we prefer to confirm in 13 or 18. That doesn't mean you can't confirm younger or you can't confirm older, but the preferred moment is 13 through 18. So when we were talking about sacramental preparation, I know you and I talked about, okay, if we're going to turn to a readiness model, how do we help our parents know when to be ready?
When is my kid ready?
When is my child ready? If it's not automatically 2nd grade, if it's not automatically 8th grade, well, when is it? So we kind of sat down and we looked at, well, first of all, there's the precepts of the church. Like, are you doing the bare minimum of living the faith? So, am I attending Mass on Sundays and holy days and resting from unnecessary labor? Am I going to reconciliation at least once a year? Am I receiving communion at least once a year? Am I observing the days of fast and abstinence throughout the year, days of penance? And am I participating in supporting the mission of the church? And if I can say I'm doing those at my age level, whatever that age level is, then I'm ready to take the next step. And I guess that would be that you participate in faith formation or youth group, that you are continuing to learn your faith and be a part of that. And finally, then when those two things have been accomplished, then you enroll in a sacramental prep process. So we join the class for preparation for reconciliation, for First Communion and whatnot. So I guess we had to come up with then, using the church's law and without adding any extra hoops, what is really required, because the church very clearly tells us we cannot add anything more than what the church requires of a person in order for them to receive the sacraments.
Sure.
So when you and I looked at reconciliation, we realized that, well, the child has to be Catholic. They have to be open to receiving the sacrament. They have to be at least 7 years old. That's the minimum age set by the church. They have to be enrolled in and attending faith formation program with at least one of their parents, so that they are growing in their faith. Absolutely, they're learning. And they should be attending Sunday Mass now with their parents and know how to participate in the celebration of the Eucharist. Again, this is the precept of the church, that they're doing the bare minimum, and now they're ready for reconciliation once they take that prep class. For First Communion, child is Catholic, open to receiving the sacrament, at least 7 years old. Already having received First Reconciliation, again, enrolled in a family faith formation program with at least one parent, and attending Sunday Mass, and knows how to participate in the celebration of the Eucharist.
Which comes again by watching, just like
exactly.
The car.
You participate in these things. And finally, confirmation. That your child is Catholic and open to receiving the sacrament, that they know that the preferred age for confirmation in the Archdiocese is between 13 and 18, that the child is enrolled in youth group or family faith formation, depending on their age, and that they are attending Sunday Mass and know how to participate in the celebration of the liturgy. Now, Jackie, the church's law says that you can confirm at the age of 7, at the age of discretion. The Archdiocese of Omaha prefers 13 to 18. And one of the things that the church's law really asks of us is that you find the moment that is most opportune. And so I had a conversation with you, and then I had a conversation with the Archbishop, and I said, Archbishop, you know, the way our program works, we have our kids in grades 1 through 6 learning with their parents. And then our junior high and high school kids have their youth group experience. It seems to me that break right there between the first program and the second program would be a great place to insert confirmation. That maybe it's more opportune for a child to prepare for confirmation when he or she is in the 5th or 6th grade, while they're still with mom and dad and still learning alongside them. And then they can unfold those graces in youth group, where they learn kind of how to live this now and dive more deeply into it, and kind of do things without mom and dad a little more. And the Archbishop was okay with us trying that and piloting that, and so I really think that that's, again, it's there's not a one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter model to everything. That every person has to be engaged as a person, and every parish has to be engaged individually.
Well, and interestingly, we just finished our first session with the 5th and 6th graders in the confirmation class. And I sat down with those kids and I had interviews with each one of them. And I asked them, one of the questions was, hey, did you want your mom or dad in class with you, or did you want them, doing their own thing? Every single kid wanted their parent there.
Yeah.
It was just amazing because they're used to that, and that's something that's comfortable. And I've had parents come up to me after this and say, my kids were always griping before because it was we have to go. And now it's we get to go.
Together.
So it's like, I don't have to do this on my own.
You're not dropping off the kids to detention.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what it felt like, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it was just, exactly. It's that school thing that, I can't wait till I don't have to do this anymore because you don't have to do this.
So when you talked about confirmation, so Jackie, how do we do our sacramental preparation?
Okay. So our sacrament prep happens. Each one of the sacraments has 6 classes that they come to, 6 preparation classes.
Okay.
Parent comes right along with the kids. For our first reconciliation and first Eucharist, the parents are actually in their own parent session, going through a program on their own for that. With the confirmation, just because the kids and the parents, that's what just worked best for them. The confirmation parents are in with the child as they're doing it. We have 2 different confirmation classes. We have a 5th and 6th grade that happens with the parent, that's the younger kids, and then we have the ones that are in youth group, the 7th and 8th grade, and their parent sits in with them as well. So they have a little different curriculum that they go through. But each sacrament, basically in a nutshell, has 6 classes, 1 retreat, and the ceremony, and that's all they have to do to go through that.
Okay, so basically, you should be practicing your faith.
Right.
You should be continuing to learn and grow in your faith through faith formation.
Yep.
And then you should do some proximate preparation that really
that
focuses
specific
on the sacrament specifically.
Yep.
And there's 6 catechetical courses
So
where the parents
catechist
also
leads.
Attend.
Yep. Catechist leads the
And we
kids.
still offer a retreat experience to kind of cap that off.
Yep. And the parents come with the kids with that too.
Absolutely. So we do that we're attempting it three times a year. So it's not just boom, boom, boom. Like
Right,
you only
or
have
you
one
miss your
opportunity.
shot.
That's it. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, we do that in the fall. We offer one session in the fall, one in the spring, and one in the summer. So the summer session's a little bit more condensed, so families can do that if that works better.
Absolutely.
With their schedules. So there's been so many people. When I got done with this at the end, I asked some parents. I said, hey, would you mind coming in just to share with me your thoughts and your experiences with this? And there have so many parents just came to me and said, yes, I want to tell you about my experience.
Yeah.
Yes. And so we put together a short video that's just a testimony. I guess that several people have come together just a minute or two on each person.
And we will link that to this
we
video.
Sure.
So that you can watch it. And I was really impressed with the number of parents that wanted to share their experience and how they grew. I remember when we did it live and just asked parents to stand up and like, how did you find this year's faith formation experience? I was standing in the back of the room. It brought tears to my eyes, to see some of these parents and just to hear their journey of growth and how they learned. And just an amazing, amazing experience.
And it was such a huge thing because, with those families that left, my heart, it was so hard for me to watch them go. But then to hear the benefits of this program, that it wasn't, this is working.
It is working. There's something really good going on.
Yeah.
So I guess those of you who've kind of peeked into our conversation today to learn a little bit more about family faith formation, how you can involve your parents as your principal catechists, and how you can prepare kids for the sacraments at appropriate ages rather than at automatic stations. I want to thank you for taking that time. Feel free to reach out to us here at St. Charles Borromeo in Omaha, Gretna, on the west end of Omaha. And we will, we're happy to have that conversation with you, pastors, religious ed directors, sacramental prep directors, confirmation coordinators, whoever you are. We're learning this along with you. And every year we do things just a little differently to tweak them, just to keep making it a better experience. But this is how Jesus taught the faith. And this is how we want to teach that faith as well. So, Jackie, thanks for taking this journey with me, and have a blessed rest of your day.